Hey guys, I'm Chris Buck and a very warm welcome to Friday Fretworks, and this week we're taking a look at the pots in your Les Paul and whether they really do make a difference to its tone. So what are pots? Pots, in short, are potentiometers, and near enough every electric guitar will have them. A Les Paul in particular comes equipped with 4, 2 in the volume controls wired as voltage dividers, and 2 in the tone controls configured as variable resistors. Now, generally speaking, brighter sounding single coil type pickups come with 250k pots, maybe a Stratocaster or a Telecaster, whereas darker, louder sounding humbucking pickups, as with a Les Paul, come with 500k pickups. And the reason being, the higher the resistance or the higher the value of the pot, the brighter the electric sound of the guitar. Now the reason for this is that higher resistance or higher value pots don't allow the higher frequencies or the treble frequencies to be diverted to ground quite so easily, manifesting in a brighter electric tone. Now this could all get very sciencey very quickly and quite frankly above my pay grade, so if you want to learn more about this kind of stuff, I'll link to a Guitar Magazine article down in the description box, which goes into infinitely more detail than, quite frankly, I'm capable of. Now, a few years ago, I went about the process of changing the original Burstbucker pickups in my 2001 Gibson Les Paul Standard. Now, I've always loved the way that guitar played, and it will always hold a special place in my heart, but in recent years, I've been very fortunate to have access to some truly incredible Les Pauls, amongst which 7 or 8 original bursts. And after playing all these amazing guitars, came to the sad conclusion that as much as I love my Les Paul, it was a bit of a mud machine, at least comparatively to those guitars. I've spoken about this in detail in those various videos I've done about those bursts, but there really is something to be said for those original PAF, patent applied for pickups. They're bright, they're sparkly, they're nuanced, there's a character there which, in my experience at least, is sadly lacking from near enough any stock Les Paul that I've played in recent years. Seeing my newfound love for the PAF, Matt from Monty's Guitars in London very kindly got in touch with me to ask if I'd be intrigued to try a set of their, quite frankly, revered Monty's PAF clones. Now, needless to say, I was incredibly impressed by these pickups, even more so once I had the chance to A/B them to a couple of original bursts. Now, my guitar didn't sound identical to these original bursts by any respect, but did undoubtedly make the guitar brighter and more nuanced, which is exactly what I was looking for. Still, there was a little bit of a kind of woolliness around my Les Paul that I kind of sort of resigned myself to the fact that that's the way my guitar sounds. But either way, as I said, I was incredibly impressed by these pickups and they improved the guitar exponentially. Started using it a hell of a lot more, as you can see in this clip from 2018 at a Cozy Powell tribute gig at the Robin 2 in Bilston. However, it was only after a recent conversation with Mr. Hugh Price, a name you'll probably recognise from Tone Twins TV or my Stratocaster restoration, that the final piece of the jigsaw, and the most important, may actually be the cheapest and easiest of near enough all the modifications you can perform to your Les Paul, at least to try and improve its tonality. Now, prior to 1973, all Gibson guitars left the factory with 500k pots. After 1973, this is what is known as the start of the Norlin era, generally less desirable, and if there is a kind of epitaph of that era of Gibson, they're thought of as dark, cumbersome sounding guitars. They started using 300k pots, and in 1977, for a brief period, actually went over to using 100k pots on the tone controls. But fast forward to the early 2000s, and all Gibson Les Pauls in this particular time frame left the factory with 300k pots, as did mine. Unless you went up to the custom shop range, where, you guessed it, you got 500k pots. I guess it's a decision driven by sort of cost effectiveness, but it doesn't really make all that much sense given pretty much all of the Les Paul tones that we would chase and strive to achieve would have no doubt been made on guitars with 500k pots. It was also interesting to see that when we took the back plate off my Les Paul and measured the two volume pots, they read out at roughly 280k. As I said, for reference, the Stratocaster volume pot is only 250k, so it may go some way towards explaining why I always found this guitar a little bit woolly sounding. So we ordered up all the relevant parts, namely two CTS 550k volume pots from Bare Knuckle, two 500k tone controls, and two Russian paper in oil capacitors to replace the original Gibson ones. Now, to be honest, I've not had a chance to listen, at least in depth, to the A/B test that we're about to hear now. So, as I would encourage you guys to, I'm going to stick a set of headphones on and have a good listen with you to see if there is any difference. Let's delve right in. first and foremost, please let me know down in the comment section what you guys were hearing. But I think the first kind of pertinent or relevant thing worth mentioning is that the change isn't actually as drastic as you might expect, even more so given the new pots in the volume positions are near enough double the value at 550k compared to the 280k ones that came out. Now, in their defense, I would say that the kind of change is more drastic when you're in the room with the guitar. There seems to be a kind of sweetness and an airiness in the top end that wasn't there beforehand. But listening back to the recordings, I don't think that's so much reflected. However, what I did think was interesting is there is a real marked difference in the low end. There's less of that vague, kind of woolly, waffly kind of low end, muddying things up. So I'm wondering whether what I'm perceiving as an increased kind of treble response is actually just less low end, giving more chance for the treble frequencies to breathe. The low end is one of those things that always seems particularly nice when you're playing in isolation, but in a band mix really has little to no place. It's an added frequency that's only really getting in the way and generally interfering or stepping on the toes of maybe keys or the bass. There's a lot of frequencies in that area kind of going around on a stage, and if you're adding unnecessarily to the melee, it's not really going to help you stand out in a mix. So I think taking those away, especially in the rhythm parts where I think it was really noticeable, I don't think that's any bad thing at all, and I'm intrigued to get this guitar back into a band mix to see how I get on. As I said, the change wasn't life-changing, but I think a lot of that probably comes down to the fact that there were a very good set of pickups in this guitar already. I think if we did this tone or pot change rather on the original burst bucket pickups and the original capacitors, I think the change would have been more marked. Ultimately, I think the take-home message from this video should be that if you are struggling with a dark, indistinct or woolly sounding Les Paul, I would definitely recommend checking out your pots and caps before going out and spending any great amount of money on pickups. As I said, pickups can be transformative in the right guitar, but they are really only as good as the pots and caps in which they're running through, and it may be those holding your guitar back from achieving its full potential. As I said, I don't think the change was as drastic or as marked as it would have been if the original burst buckets were in this guitar, so maybe that's another video for another time. But in the meantime, the total value of this modification came to around about £50, and if you compare that to 200, 300, maybe even in excess of that on a kind of aftermarket set of boutique pickups, it's a no-brainer to at least check out your pots and caps first, I would say. So, as ever, I'm Chris Buck. Thank you very much for watching Friday Fretworks. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon if you haven't already, and I shall see you next week for another video. Cheers, guys. Take care. I'll see you soon.